coming to Hippodrome Theatre from July 24th to 26th, 2025, showcasing the best in Nigerian arts, music, fashion, and investment opportunities. Whether you're looking to discover the future of real estate, explore Nigeria's culinary masterpieces, or get immersed in an electric Afrobeat performance, this is the event of the year. You can also join us for a film festival, cultural dance spectacles, and the recognition awards. Don't miss out on the business opportunities and cultural experiences waiting for you. Book your tickets now before they're gone on eventbrite.co.uk. Call or text +447 438 893 190 or 080 330 46768 or +447 459 071 747. Visit our website superiorradioandtelevision.com. Nigeria Week London 2025. Nigeria Week London 2025, celebrating the best of Nigeria, is partnered with Civil Society, scaling up nutrition in Nigeria.
Good day, viewer out there. This welcoming you to SRTV studio in Delta State. And of course, we know that the studio in London and that of Abuja and Lagos should be joining so that concurrently we'll reach you. The program specifically is Inside Delta, where we look holistically on Delta-centric issues. But of course, in this, I consider this a special edition, especially in the sense that what we are discussing is a universal concept, talking about journalism and the World Press Freedom Day that was celebrated. The world paused a while, Saturday, May 3rd, to celebrate World Press Freedom Day. And we have here in the studio, live, Deacon Comrade Churchill Oyowe. He is the chairman of the Delta State Union of Journalists. And he is the chairman of, when you consider that a number of vibrant media platforms, both print and online, in Nigeria and Africa, they trace their ascendancy to Delta State, the Hebrews, the Vanguards, and all that. So I consider him as the chairman of chairmen, as it were. So, my chairman, you are welcome. Thank you. Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you. And just like we tried saying in the opening salvo, this is Inside Delta. So we will be discussing a universal concept, journalism, freedom of the press, quite universal, and some of the issues that journalists confront when they are in the front line. But we shall also be doing our best to narrow it down to the realities and peculiarities of Delta State. And I think it just reminds me that I have also had reason to co-appear with you in another platform, and the issues on discourse were not too different from this. So may we just know, Saturday, May 3rd, that was set aside as World Press Freedom Day. How was it marked by the NUJ in Delta?
Okay, that day, Press Freedom Day, first of all, let me just try and give us a background as to the relevance of that day.
Okay.
It was born out of the fact that journalists were becoming an endangered group of persons.
Okay.
So in 1993, it was declared as the day of World Press Freedom Day by the United Nations, after a recommendation from its specialized agency, UNESCO.
UNESCO, yes.
And since then, we've been celebrating the day. And it's a day set aside to bring awareness to members of the public, the important role of journalism, why its independence and freedom is important for the people and for good governance. and why it's also important for the rights of journalists and their protection to be guaranteed. So that is the relevance of the day.
Okay.
We celebrate it not just as ritual, but to bring to reminder those in authorities, whether in government or private sector, particularly the security agencies. Some of them can be very overzealous,
Okay.
to see to it that journalists' rights are protected and their lives are not put in danger, because a lot of journalists have died in the course of serving the public. You remember, our primary role was spelled out in the Constitution,
Yeah.
Section 22 of the 1999 Constitution, as amended, gave journalists a special role to hold those in governance accountable, not necessarily those in the public sector, but generally all in a bid to bring about good governance in the polity. So we did not specifically celebrate it here in Delta State, but we did some media engagements to bring to the fore the relevance of the day. There was no formal gathering, but at least we used that day to further remind our people that this day exists and this is the purpose for which the day exists. Here in Delta, I'm sure we visited some media houses to pass out the message and the need for journalists to be rights to be protected and their lives also to be protected. And like I said, last year, two of our journalists were involved in human rights abuses. So it was an opportunity for us to also bring to attention the need for overzealous security men not to trample on the rights of journalists. The way they have the right to do their job, that is the way journalists also have the right to do their own. Both are serving the interests of the public. So one should not overstep its boundary to now overshadow the other. We are all serving the public. And as I said before, some journalists who were affected last year during there was a protest that was called. I think some of them have been honored in Abuja. Not that I think, some of them were called for honor in Abuja for their gallantry as pressmen. So the day is meant to remind journalists of their rights and the need for them to be protected. Also, for members of the public, including those in governance, to be aware that we play a vital role to enhance governance, good governance, not just governance, good governance. And also, in playing that role, they should help us by protecting our rights and our lives.
Thank you so very much. The life of the journalist needs to be protected. Journalists, is it right to say that these rights are, yes, constitutionally given, or is it more of an extension of the right of freedom of speech that people have, which was also enshrined in the First Amendment, talking about the freedom of speech as an inalienable right, and the journalists representing the populace. There are people that may not, their voice may not be heard, but the journalist has his own way as a member of the fourth estate of the realm to highlight or bring up what these people are passing through in order to see that the society has some level of balance. So is the journalist exercising this right on behalf of himself to earn a living, or is it an extension of the right of the citizens
Okay.
to be heard?
Okay. You were trying to come up with the American version of it. We have our own version of freedom of the press or freedom of expression, like is enshrined in our own constitution. That is Section 39 of the 1999 Constitution as amended.
Yeah.
If you go there, you will see that it's the right of all Nigerians, but it's a right that the journalists have taken upon themselves to protect, to ensure that everyone is given the right to freedom of expression. Although there is a proviso there that it should be done within the ambit of the law, that you have rights to express yourself does not mean that you should use that right to infringe on another person's right, because where your right ends, another person's own begins from there. So the right is there. Journalists it's not the prerogative of journalists. It's the prerogative of all Nigerians, including the journalists. But it is the journalist that has that vantage position to always inch on why it should not be denied anybody, including the journalist. So, but our role, like I said, is specially spelled out in Section 22. Section 39 is an additional backup of the law for the job of the journalist. So, the journalist is only leveraging on that to further do the job of Section 22.
In SRTV, what we actually do is try to be very, very dispassionate, be objective. Sincerely speaking, will you say that today's journalist, the average journalist today, is still telling truth to power? Is he still holding leadership or accountable? Or is he just writing or talking himself to limelight so that he too can be noticed and also be settled, as it were, or be compromised? The ethics of the profession, to what extent are they still the driving force for the journalists to see how he can crusade for a better society?
Now, the media space has evolved over time from what we know as traditional media platforms. It has now expanded to the extent that one man can own a medium. That one man can be the reporter. That one man can be the sub-editor. That one man can be the editor or the editor-in-chief.
And the publisher.
And the publisher. So it is now a complicated field to be. So it's you find out that the best cannot come out from that kind of arrangement.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, the scenario you've just created, the integrity in the media space, gatekeeping, and quality control. If I, Godfrey Baka, I initiate and determine what is a story, I use my handset and do it, and I upload it, and come to consider if I didn't have a formal training in journalism, so I do not know about slander, I do not know about libel, and I go out and I dish it out there. To what extent is the media space still safe? America, who in one of his postulations said, if he has it where, but today, can that still be said when you have media platforms that are, let's be frank about this, my chairman, the nation is being owned by the president of this nation. Nation newspaper is owned by the president of this nation. Then the Hebrew family still has and runs the Guardian and all that. The Awolowo family, the Tribune and all that. No matter your professional commitment, will nation come and unearth or do an editorial to set an agenda to talk about this mass defection and the implication of this and how Nigerians develop, sir?
Now, I'll say that's why in the early times, when you do newspaper, radio, television studies, you find out that these things were owned by individuals. And gradually, government started owning its own so that it can also have its own voice in the war of uh, um, opinions. You understand? So that was the beginning of government coming into the media space.
Yes.
Now, when government employs its staff to work for it as media or practitioners or as journalists, they are duty bound to reflect in their report the interests of government. They are not necessarily there to be critical of the establishment that employs them. The same thing goes for private individuals. You don't expect Vanguard to be critical of Amuka. You don't expect Guardian or his business interests. You don't expect the editorial team to be critical of the Hebrew family. The same thing with the nation and the president of the country, Tinubu family, or their interest. So it's a difficult, it's a complex, in fact, managing journalism creeds and ownership. What is expected of a properly bred journalist is to balance the interests. After all, what is journalism all about? It's about seeking truth. Truth is not found in one person. Truth is an accumulation of facts presented in a package such as news, features, editorial, or documentary. So a thoroughbred journalist is duty bound, irrespective of who is your employer, to represent the true creed of journalism, which is objectivity, balance, fairness, all those features that bring about the journalism profession to limelight. They are there for the true bred journalist to take place when he's doing his report. And again, we are guided by theories of mass communication. There are theories from the extreme to the middle, and from the middle to the less extreme. You talk about libertarian. Libertarian publishes no matter whose us is God. You talk about development journalism. It talks about looking at development from the angle of government. Then you talk about the social responsibility. It's saying the same thing like the developmental, but it's more balanced. It looks at the left, it looks at the right. But at the focus of it is the ability for it not to be a bane for the peaceful nature of society. Okay. It tries to see that its job does not impinge on the security and safety of lives and property in society. So, by and large, a journalist should have that in mind. Like we said before, the mistake of a journalist can be very costly. But the mistake of a doctor can affect one or two persons. The mistake of a lawyer, one or two persons. The mistake of an engineer, maybe some persons, if it leads to the collapse of a building or so, or the road. But when a journalist makes a mistake, it involves the whole community. It can bring about conflagration of the whole community. It can consume a whole community. So that's why it is expected that the journalists should at all times be guided by the creed of journalism, and that's social responsibility role to ensure that its offering does not necessarily destroy society. So if you look at it, whether you are in private sector, you are in government sector, journalists owe it as a creed to protect the interests of society. I don't expect somebody who's working in the nation to be critical of Buhari, Bola Tinubu. The same thing, somebody who's working on the state government, the Pointer or Data Broadcasting Service, whether Warri or Asaba, to be too critical of government. But they also owe government and the citizenry that responsibility to ensure that at all times the interest of the people is projected in their offering. That way, even the government that employs them will still be told some truths if they have conscience on how to bring about good governance. So if you ask me again, people will say it is those that are in the private sector that are more altruistic when it comes to reportage. I don't see it that way. I see it as a personal approach to enhancing professionalism in journalism. It's a personal approach. Even those in the private sector, they are also guilty, because if you are a private sector purely as one individual, how do you sustain yourself? You also have people who sustain you, so that such interests you don't play with. So it's not a matter of say those in government protect government interests. Everybody has an interest to protect. But in protecting that interest, the larger interest, which is public interest, should not be submerged. Nobody is free in this narrative. All that we should ensure is not to suppress public interest, all in the name of protecting one interest or the other.
I think that's a rich presentation from you. Perhaps we ought to have even started from this point. Meanwhile, all those who are following us on all social media platforms, our goal here is to set agenda with the aggregate of the views expressed. So your comments are welcome while this conversation is going on. In the present setting, is it still very, very clear, well defined, who the journalist is, who constitute your members, and what is your benchmark of maybe qualification, issues of ethics and discipline? Who is the journalist? I asked this with some concern. Some of us had background in NIJ and went and studied this and that and started practicing and all that. But today, if my mom was alive and with this phone in her hand and something is happening in Bogonogo, he films it and send across. Over time, she has some followers and she has either become an influencer or she's exactly, and operating in the netizens, all are in the net and all that. So now, are we still very, very clear with issues of definitions and operational limitation? Who indeed constitute your members as journalists?
Okay. We have a constitution as a body, Nigerian Union of Journalists. In the first chapter, we talked about membership, and the membership conditions were well spelled out in that constitution. One of the first things that was stated, it used to be a diploma, but the latest constitution has now risen the bar to that of first degree in mass communication, journalism, or journalism-related courses. That is first and foremost. The other one says that before you can become a member, you must register you must be registered by the registrar, and you must have practiced for 1 year before you can begin to have been registered. And for those who have been practicing 5 years before 1992, whether you have qualification as school certificates or not, you are also qualified. I repeat, 5 years before 1992. Once you have been practicing before that time, you are also deemed to have been qualified as a journalist. Now, I will make bold to say one thing, that the field has been infiltrated by a lot of individuals who do have the qualification, but they do not observe the ethics of the profession of journalism. Why? Because journalism is about the only profession that is not protected by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Why did I say so? Because now, apart from the qualified ones that are playing truancy, there are those who are not qualified that are still practicing journalism, making it an all-comer affair, which is not good for the profession and it's not good for public interest. Yesterday, in our platform, our NUJ national platform, I was forced to make a presentation there on why we should come up with reforms so that Babalawos will not start telling us what journalism is. Because we have people who have been in this field, they don't have any formal training. No formal training on journalism. But because they are on-air personality, they are now setting the pace of what journalism should be. So we should go back to the basis to define journalism properly in the context of the law so that it will be at par with other professionals' bodies. If you have not studied law and gone to law school, you cannot practice law. The same thing with those in pharmacy, engineering, and the rest. We want to see a situation where we will have that kind of arrangement so that journalism will not be an all-comer affair. I agree with you. Anybody who has access to an Android or iOS phone can call himself a journalist. Some people have even taken the role as journalists by the mere fact that they can publish and they have followers.
Yeah.
But that does not make them journalists. In fact, if we have a legislation that truly defines the functions of journalists, these people will become criminals by the time they start practicing, or if they continue practicing. So, over the years, we ourselves have been the bane of journalism having that true reflection of a profession. We have been struggling on whether we should be a trade union or a professional body.
Okay.
And that has not helped us. In fact, whenever there is a legislation to regulate the practice of journalism in Nigeria, we are the ones that will go against it. We say it will infringe on Section 39 of the Constitution. Since we have been protecting Section 39 of the Constitution, what has been our lot?
Okay.
Somebody will employ you, will send you to the field without any form of welfare, and he expects you to be working for him. You are vulnerable. You cannot protect the creed of journalism.
Yeah, so we're actually getting to that point, that of no, people are meant to go to very volatile places to cover assignment, no life insurance scheme. Some newspaper houses and some media outfits may not have paid for months, you know. So I now begin to wonder how theoretical, how realistic is press freedom to a journalist, whether professional or an amateur, who has not been paid, you know, and he goes to an assignment, and you are preaching ethics to him, not to collect an envelope, and whether yellow or white. And maybe it is based in that envelope that he is to return back to his office. So what happens? So how theoretical is the issue of press freedom when we do not have reforms with respect to the benchmark? You know for certainty that a young medical officer, as a house officer, is entitled to be paid so amount in Nigeria. Do we have such benchmarks with respect to what a journalist should take? And has the union ever picketed, as it were, you know, uh, uh, stations and offices that have used journalists for some time and not paid them.
Okay, let us contextualize or do proper explanation of the terms press freedom and ethics. We are discussing press freedom. We are that it is a call or to raise awareness for journalists' right to be protected and for their lives also to be protected.
So that they can properly serve the society.
So they can properly serve the society.
So if there are hindrances
and in
to
serving
their
the society, in serving the society, there are ethical rules they must follow. Now, a journalist that is not properly remunerated or secured cannot observe journalism ethics of objectivity, balance. And fairness. You understand me? Now, you look at it. There was this Nigerian media. He tried to establish in South Africa. He owns a newspaper in Nigeria. He owns a broadcast outfit in Nigeria.
Yeah, you just stopped short of mentioning his name.
He tried to establish in South Africa, and he tried to introduce the strategies that succeeded that succeeded for him in Nigeria by sending reporters out without that welfare packages.
You just give them ID card and ask them to fend for themselves.
And he was asked to close shop in South Africa because they have a law or they have laws that protect their workforce there, including that of journalists. Now, I will tell you, here in Nigeria, the journalism profession is not protected by law. We have the Nigerian Press Council, but that one is neither here nor there. We need a council that will properly regulate the operations of journalism practice, whether as print, broadcast, or online.
Okay.
There needs to be a council that will license journalists to practice. This is what we have been running away from. We said we don't want to be licensed. We don't want to be regulated. Now, the profession has become an all-commerce affair. As a lawyer, a private practitioner.
And the professional, so-called professionally trained journalists are losing control.
They are losing control. So as a lawyer, as a doctor, you have a minimum fee that you can collect as consultancy.
Okay.
But the journalist does not have one. Somebody giving you money thinks he's doing you a favor. But if there's a law, before you make use of my service, you will be guided by the law. Exactly. And if I tell you that this is my consultancy fee, I'm not breaching any law.
Okay.
Because I, as a private person, I need money to buy data. I need money to transport. I need money to feed myself. I need money to research.
Yeah.
I need money to publish, to maintain my site.
Yes.
So nothing stops you from collecting money for all this. Ordinarily, if you have traction in your content, you should be getting money from there. And you should also be getting adverts. You can even welcome donation and subscriptions. That is how it should be, so that your editorial independence will not be compromised.
For
sustainability.
Yeah.
But then there's no law of that nature in Nigeria. We need that law badly. In the 8th Assembly, a legislator in the House of Representatives attempted introducing such legislation where there will be a council that will certify you and license you to operate as a journalist. I tell you, NUJ and Guild of Editors were hoodwinked by NPAN and BON. NPAN and BON, they are the major bane of the practice of journalism in Nigeria, in my own understanding. That is in my own understanding. This is personal to me. they said that it will erode freedom of expression. Since then, we have been having issues of survival of the journalists because they are not protected by law. These people know that if there's a protection, they will have to be responsible to their employers and employees. They will have to be, because as it is now, they're not responsible to their employees. Some of these newspaper houses you see in Asaba, they don't pay their workers' salaries. They just send them to the field, and you see they now become a burden to society, a burden to newsmakers, which ought not to be. What you should do is to cover your story and send to your station independently. That is where we will now say we are having robust journalism in practice.
Okay.
But with that kind of state of being, they are bound to be compromised. They can no longer send balanced stories. In fact, it is not good for governance when journalists are not in a position to objectively do their job. It's not good for governance because journalists, no matter what, we as human beings, we are selfish. If I were to be the governor, the president, or the local government man, or a commissioner or minister, or a House of Assembly member, I will not want anybody to oppose me, even though I'm progressing in error. But with the ombudsman in the form of a journalist, calling public and private people in powers of authority or in position of authority to order, you will see them being put in check. But there's no legislation that will make the journalists, that will empower the journalists to have that status. That's why yesterday on our platform, like I was telling you, I had to make a presentation before our members. We are talking about where the national president is, where the deputy national president, where the national working committee is, where all vice presidents of the zones and chairmen and secretaries of state council, that is the platform. That we need legislation that will make journalism practice to be truly professional in Nigeria. That we are powered with other professions. We should not be afraid of being regulated. It is only those who are into slandering or make libelous or one way or the other involved in blackmailing that should be afraid of being regulated.
Okay.
As a professional journalist, you should not be afraid of being regulated. As a doctor, you're not afraid of being regulated if you are doing the right thing. The same thing goes for a lawyer. It is only when you fall short of the law that the law will catch up with you. And we want that same thing for journalists. Journalism needs to be regulated in Nigeria. It's not only punishment. The benefits are also there.
Okay.
And that is what we are short-sighted about. A lot of members do not know that when you are regulated, you are positioned as a professional who is due to be remunerated appropriately.
Okay.
And that is the main thing that we are looking for as journalists.
Thank you so very much. Yeah, that's an eye-opener. And come to think of it, you mentioned government.
Yeah.
And strategic to governance, democracy, is about citizenship engagement. And there is never a time, there is no town hall meeting that a state like Delta can call now, and all Deltans will be accommodated for the government of the day to update them on this is what I have done, this is what I will do. And it also affords a platform for feedback, to generate feedback, where the citizens will tell you, okay, but in this community, it is like this. Let us do it like this and all that. Now, I want you to explain, because you are the chairman of NUJ in Delta State. Deltans cannot gather in one place for the government of the day to address them. The journalists under you, that you chair, are the ones who should represent Deltans in that setting and be able to hear the government of the day out as part of accountability. And the government of the day should also be able to get feedback from them. So it's a win-win situation. When last was the government of Delta
quarterly
State?
press briefing.
Yes. When last did it hold?
The last one was during the time of Senator Ifeanyi Okowa as governor of Delta State. And February, before the gubernatorial elections of 2023, the general election of 2023.
Yeah, please, my chairman, this is a live program, so we don't have an opportunity to edit anything.
I'm saying it.
We are in May, and
2023.
Elder Sheriff Oborowore, governor of Delta State, has been in power for 2 years. Are you in any way telling me that?
I'm progressing.
Progress.
I'm progressing. I've just given you the last time we had that kind of gathering where the governor of the state will give stewardship of his activities before the representative of the people,
okay,
who are the journalists. Yes, the House of Assembly, they represent the people, but journalists represent the fourth estate of the realm.
Yeah.
And so they are also representing the people, because in reporting, they also send messages to the people, and the people will now react. They will send message to whoever has generated that information. So what I'm trying to say is that the last time we had it was in February or March 5. I don't know, either March 5. March 5 was the election. It was in February 2023. So since then,
somewhere around Unity Hall.
Unity Hall, New Government House Press Center.
Okay.
New Government House Press. I was there personally, so I think I should be very sure of the dates I'm giving. February 2023, and that was the last we have had in the state. We have written severally to the governor for the need for him to address the press. He said that is not his style. But the implication of it is that you are not making yourself available to account. Constitutional role to play to meet as enshrined in section 22 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended. You owe it a responsibility to meet with journalists from time to time, to give account, to give stewardship of what you have been doing, the good work you have been doing. Let Deltans know through journalists. It is not enough for you to have your style. Your style may be personal to you, but this is a constitutional issue that you should observe. It does not take anything to meet with the press. You're already meeting with them from time to time during assignment, but this is critical in the sense that you are having a gathering, a gathering of more members of the media in one place to represent the people, as it were, during a media chat. And that is one of the best arrangements for you to actually reach out to the people. We are appealing that His Excellency should put his style aside and respond to a constitutional need by addressing journalists. Even if it's once in a year, tell journalists what you have been doing so well in Delta State, so that the people for once will say we have heard from the governor. Because the media team that may be at your disposal may not be encompassing enough to represent the entirety of the media society.
Honestly speaking, if not your track record in credibility, and as an information manager, I've known you over the years, I would find it difficult to believe that 24 days to 2 years in office of a governor, he has not addressed the media in the state. Could this be as a result, could this be traced?
That's why I said, irrespective of his style, he still needs to address the media.
Yes.
Maybe by the time there is enough to say, I have done what I believe strongly is good for Deltans.
No, there is a school of thought that believe that that may not be the best platform to market what the government has been doing. That it is just a gathering where all manner of people under the label of journalists gather. They hear out a governor, manage to ask a few questions, but that the cost-benefit analysis is such that more money goes into managing that kind of situation than other levels of information management. Can you now defend the journalism profession that you belong to? Do people come for media chat quarterly or so with the governor for the information they are to get and put it to the benefit of society, or do they come there for the envelope, quote and unquote, that they are to generate for themselves? Which one is the propelling or driving motivational reason for addressing a quarterly press briefing, my chairman?
When we say quarterly press briefing, is the presentation of milestones within that period. It's not necessarily because of the envelope that will come out of it. That is purely at the discretion.
But envelopes do come out in some settings.
I remember during the time of Ibori, Udwan, they give handsome envelope. When I say handsome envelope.
My chairman, when is envelope handsome?
Some are flat, some are heavy. But when I say handsome, you will understand what I mean. Okay. So I remember, but it's at their discretion. It's at their discretion. You understand? But what is important is the constitutional responsibility a public officer owes. He may say, I can do it through other means. Maybe we are still waiting. Maybe we will do it through radio chat or television chat. They used to do it. We have different forms of reaching out to the public. We have what they call heterogeneous and diverse audience.
Okay.
You meet them probably through radio more, and television to some extent.
Okay.
Because depending on the capacity of the viewer or the audience.
All right.
We want all these to be incorporated.
Well,
because in the past, this is how it has been. We use radio and television simultaneously, state radio and television simultaneously. And at other time, we do quarterly media chat with the governor. These are democratic ways of engaging the press.
If you're out there, I am carried away by the chat with Chairman Dicky, Comrade Churchill Oyewe, that I honestly would have wished it to flow, but we have producers in the studio who are indicating that we must go on a break. And when we come back on the other segment, we'll wrap up this show. But thus far, we want to thank you for hooking up to SRTV Studios and on the topic of today, which reflects the World Press Freedom Day and journalism in the context of Delta State and how the journalist is helping to shape his society. Thank you so very much, and see you on the other side of the show.
Looking for a home away from home in Abuja? Look no further than SRTV Shortlet Apartments. Our fully furnished apartments offers everything you need for a comfortable and relaxing stay. Unwind in spacious rooms with exquisite ambience. Cook delicious meals in our well-equipped kitchen and relax in our comfortable sitting rooms watching your favorite shows. And guess what? 247 Wi-Fi available. But that's not all. SRTV goes extra mile by providing a car to take you around town during your stay. No need to worry about navigating public transportation or hailing taxis. Explore Abuja at your own pace. Book your SRTV Shortlet apartment today and experience the perfect blend of comfort and convenience. You can reach us by calling this number 070-6237-9915 or 080-7082-7331.
So you're welcome back. Once again, we are in the SRTV studio. The name remains Godfrey Baka, and I'm privileged to have the chairman of my union, about the only professional union that I belong to all these years, talking about Deacon Comrade Churchill Oyowe. And he has actually been, explaining to us the issues surrounding the operational dynamics and realities of the journalists, especially in the context of Delta State, and how a stronger partnership actually needs to be put in place between the government, the employers, and the journalists, so that at the end of the day, our goal is that we will have a society that is flowing with better information. Because it is when there is disinformation or no information at all that falsehood and speculation take over the entire information space, which is not exactly what we want. My chairman, the social media is preponderantly, like we are reaching viewers now via the platform of social media. So it has its speed, it has its potential, it has its great sides and all that. It has also liberalized and democratized the media industry, But we find out that in some cases, there are no gatekeeping and there are no quality control. How are these challenges being addressed so that we do not end up misinforming society? One of the riots involving youths in Nigeria was said to have started off by an issue in Ughelli in Delta State here, that eventually it was found out that it was not particularly so. How can we maximize the use and the gains of the social media, but ensuring that quality control, gatekeeping is not endangered for the good of society?
We envisage this challenge of the abuse of the social media when it was just evolving. And at that time, trained and registered journalists were encouraged to take ownership of the social media. As I talk to you now, a lot of trained and registered journalists are also on that platform, the new media as it were. Even organizations have taken hold of that platform too. And one of them in Nigeria can boast of 1.5 billion viewers. And that is about 15%, or let me say 10%, over 10% of the world's population coming from a Nigerian outfit. So it has really blossomed in reach and speed, like you said. But then we have charlatans also taking ownership of that space. Among the charlatans, even outside the charlatans, you have registered and qualified journalists who are not observing the ethics of the profession, also taking ownership of that space. So it has made the place to be one unruly community that control is becoming intractable. But like I said, one of the ways that they are controlling it presently is through the Cybercrime Acts of 2015, when you, as a blogger or a publisher, online publisher, fall short of cybercrime offenses, particularly as it involves bullying and cyber stalking. But then, this brings to mind again the need for that legislation I talked about. so that the journalism field will not be for all comers. It's for the good of society. And I'm seeing, I'm talking to our people again because they have always been part and parcel of the antiques of Newspaper Proprietors Association of Nigeria, which is NPN, and Broadcasting Organization of Nigeria, BON, which you belong. Your organization belong,
Yes.
but this one is online. If as a responsible organization, you can pay for you can pay your workers, you can take care of their welfare, their insurance, then you are good to operate. You should not be afraid of the law, because if the law comes to be, it will be for the greater good of society. Journalism will be properly regulated. The idea of objectivity being thrown to the dust will not be there again. Objectivity will come to play, because then there will be a council that will be responsible for moderating operators, practitioners in that field. So what we are saying is whatever exists in the mainstream is also what exists in the new media.
Okay.
Nothing has changed. The law of journalism remains the law of journalism.
Yeah.
All we need is a council that will regulate that professional body and bring sanity to its operation.
The time for that council should be now. You have harped so much on legislation, legislation. And that brings to mind the Freedom of Information Act. What difference has it made? Growing up, we saw files in offices that people will be carrying from one office to the other, and they will write boldly, top secret, classified. You know, with FOI, one expected that I could walk into the next local government and on the strength of the provision of FOI and ask for what their budget was for clearing of waste in the last environmental exercise. And it should be made known to me, and I could use it for my analysis and for the public good. But you find out that in spite of the Freedom of Information Act, access to vital public sector information is still a challenge, is still an issue. To what extent has the NUJ tried to test this, even legally? When we consider that it's on the strength of that not a Nigerian, an American researcher has used FOI to ask America to release a particular level of information regarding our president. To what extent has the Nigerian journalist used it in order to improve on his trade?
Okay. First and foremost, awareness of the and how many journalists have properly studied the acts to know where they come in, how they can utilize it to enhance.
When you talk of awareness, are you by any means implying?
When I say awareness,
are you implying that there are no training and retraining section for journalists among its members?
Because it's not about training. The law is there in the public domain. The law is there in the public domain. You don't need the training to know the content of the law.
Okay.
You can just browse it and it will give you the provisions. So some persons may not be aware. And that act is very important because it will help for a situation like investigative journalism,
yes,
to thrive in Nigeria. But you know one thing about the average journalist, they run away from investigative journalism because that is a specialized area that you have to be very adept before you can thrive in it. So I'm still wondering if we have persons in the field who are acquainted with that content of the law. Secondly, I believe that that law, as journalists, you need a lot of patience to get attention, because in the law they stipulated a period of time that you will write before they will answer you. You need to be conversant with those if you are seeking specific information, and you need to arm yourself with those provisions when you are writing in case there is a delay. So I cannot openly tell you, confidently tell you that we have done anything about it. Nobody has come to me to say this is my predicament. It is experiential. It is based on what you have worked on that you can talk about. I have not addressed such issues before, that somebody had difficulty or challenges accessing information from a particular organization. But then it is rigorous, which means the way it was passed at the federal level may not necessarily be the way they have domesticated it at the state, local government level. It is rigorous. It will take you like 1 to 6 weeks to get information if you apply for a particular issue.
Okay, so Chairman Oyowe, you've been in office for how long now?
And as NUJ,
NUJ Chairman.
this makes it 1 year, 7 months.
How long more to go for this tenure?
1 year, 5 months.
Okay, so it's a midterm report. So,
If you say so.
looking at a midterm report, what positive contributions, what positive difference has your tenure brought to the NUJ in Delta State?
Okay. Well, when we came in, we actually came on a slogan, power concept, professionalism, openness, welfare, engagement, and resourcefulness. And we have been pursuing this agenda simultaneously to the extent that we have been having good results. We have been, one way or the other, instilling professional conducts in our members. For training, we have had a few within this period, and it's not easy to change people who are not guided by ethics, particularly as some of them came in with the intention of seeing the profession as a source of stomach infrastructure. Mm-hmm. That is the bane of journalism today. A lot of people did not come with passion, rather.
Okay.
They not come with passion to say, I want to serve society. We know survival is key, but if you have gone through the 4 walls of the university and you have been well trained, there will be a level of pricking of the conscience when you are faced with the reality of your job. Unfortunately, some of these persons have knowledge that is not well baked before entering the profession. And some of them have mindsets of truancy, to blackmail, to slander, and to lie,
possibly extort.
And extort. That is why we are still saying we need a legislation, a council to control them. So, invariably, we have tried our possible best to orient our members on how to make the profession to come to limelight again and to be in good stead in terms of the offerings that it gives to the public. On openness, that is a kind of internal arrangement. We have tried as much as possible to be transparent and accountable with what we have. Welfare, we have tried very well. If you want to score us, we have done very well in welfare. We have had some members who have been challenged. We have had cases of bereaved members, and we have shown responsibility. We have shown responsibility. But you must permit me, in this area of welfare, to our members who have been challenged, one individual has been so wonderful. Ashiwaju Shola Adebayo. When we started the contribution, we first of all, for one of our members, Dave Ukbogadie, who is having cancer of the jaw, Adebayo alone gave 400,000. Ministry of Information gave 300,000. Contributory Health Scheme, Delta State Contributory Health Commission gave 200,000 naira. And the ASH was also of immense help as a specialist hospital.
Yeah.
We had cause to generate money for a second time for him, because cancer is something that you must follow up consistently.
Exactly.
Before we could raise 100,000, this same Ashiwaju Shola Adebayo gave 2.5 million naira. And that one sustained the treatment for some time. Now, we did a third one. We decided to call on his family people and his ethnic nationality, Isoko, where he came from, for help. The man, Shola Adebayo, came again. He said, if I can entertain people who are coming on a daily basis to visit me in my house that got burnt with 8 million naira. So far, that is 2 weeks after his house got burnt, he has spent 8 million naira. He said, then I should be able to give 10.5 million naira to enable this man to undergo the chemotherapy and radiotherapy treatment and other medical bills that the man needed, amounting to 10.5 million naira. He gave it. And so that is because we have a welfare committee that is working.
That is in place.
That is in place.
Yeah.
I don't want to mention other individuals because we are not exposing them. We did it selflessly. But I'm only trying to mention an extraordinary act of generosity and hospitality and humanistic nature of one individual. Not to praise him, but to also encourage others who have a lot to give back to society. So we have done well in the area of welfare. On engagements, we have also done well. We have introduced ourselves to various stakeholders in the public and private sector to tell them that we are existing. We are existing, and we need collaborations to help serve the public better.
Talking about collaboration.
Resourcefulness.
Okay.
Resourcefulness is the last one.
Okay.
We said we will not leave the council the way we met it. We will leave it better than we met it. So we now came up with 3 points agenda, which we termed short, medium, and long-term development plan for the council. As I talk to you, we are involved in lock-up shops in our secretariat. And in no distant time, we'll complete it. We plan it to last for 1 year, but this is 1 year, 7 months. We hope to complete it by this May. Then, if you are conversant with the environment, and if you have been there before, you see that we now have a green lounge, executive green lounge, an area exclusive for relaxation and for holding short meetings, small meetings, and the rest. So it's part of the facility development upgrade that we are engaging in that environment. And lastly, we are trying to get back our land. We have an additional land that was encroached on by one association, one Anglican association. It's part of what we said we should do. We don't want to leave the environment the way we met it. We want to improve on it. We have taken the issue to the Sovereign General after writing to the Ministry of Lands and Survey and the Ministry of Justice. We need justice. our land was wrongfully encroached on or deceitfully encroached on, and we need back that land. We hope that the Surveyor General will do due interpretation to the C of O as updated in 2023. So generally, we have been resourceful. Our power slogan has been bringing us results. Although we have been having one or two challenges.
Okay.
As human beings, we are bound to have challenges.
Okay.
The way I understand governance is not the way you understand governance.
Yeah.
And so there will be internal wranglings and here and there. But it's all part of humanity. Our capacity to agree and disagree and agree is what makes us human beings.
That's so interesting.